I'd love to have one of them.
They were supported by two
They had the advantage.
crew at the time of the Civil War, light artillery would take 8 soldiers to work with 1 cannon. You're going to have 4 soldiers at the front. You're going to have a 5th soldier, which is running the ammunition back and forth. And back here by where you are, this building is, there'll be the ammunition supply, which is called the limber chest. There'll be 2 additional cannoneers there. You're also going to have a gunner, which is going to be the gun commander, and also attached to an artillery unit, you're going to have carpenters, you're going to have blacksmiths, you're going to have a whole slew of people. A typical Civil War battery is 4 cannons. Now, 4 cannons times 8 is how many? How many?
What?
I have 4 cannons. Each one takes 8 men. How many men do I have on a cannon
Oh,
battery?
32.
How much?
32.
32 men to work 4 cannons. That's a lot of manpower compared to what we have today, okay? But because they did it, they did things by the numbers. So to point out our numbers, we have cannoneer number 1. The tool he'll use, the implement is called a ramrod, and it's a sponge. Basically what he's going to do is he's going to take that sponge end of the cannon. When it's time to do it, he's going to go in with a wet sponge. He's going to sponge out the bore of the cannon. The reason why we do this is, number 1, we want the bore to be clear. And number 2, if we had a previous shot, we may still have embers in there. What's going to happen if you got a little bit of a fire in there and you throw gunpowder back on top of the fire? Right, so we want to make sure our gun's safe for our next charge. Okay? When it's this appropriate time, he'll take the other end of the ramrod. The ammunition will be advanced towards him. It will be loaded. Go ahead, and then he will ram the charge, including the gunpowder charge, all the way to the back of the cannon. He'll pull that out. He'll get out of the way, getting ready for the next shot. Okay? Cannoneer number 2, the tool he's using is a worm type device, a corkscrew device. His job is, he's basically the first person inside the cannon. He's going to go in with that worm. He's going to clear out that barrel to make sure there's no obstructions in there. All right? Because we're using cloth gunpowder bags. If there's some residue of a cloth gunpowder bag in there, it may not be hot, but it's still going to create a problem. So we're going to make sure it's clear. Today we use aluminum foil instead of cloth. So we've got to make sure we get all the tin out of there before we fire it, maybe injure somebody with it, okay? He's also going to serve as the cannon loader. He will take the ammunition, he will cup it in his arms, he'll face it towards the gun crew instead of the enemy. He'll load it, he'll keep his back to the enemy because he's got a projectile and gunpowder here, and if he gets shot by a sniper, it's better to take it in the back than the front. Any reason why, you think?
If it hits the ammunition.
Right, if I'm loading it like this and I'm getting shot with a sniper, there's a very good possibility that bullet's going to blow me up and the rest of the crew. Okay? Cannon number 3, the 2 tools he has is a leather stall, we call it the thumb stall, which goes over the left thumb, and a vent pick. What his job is to do is he used to clear the vent of the back of the gun. The vent of the back of the gun right here is actually the firing port. He's going to use a primer in there shortly. When he gets done with that, he's going to close the vent. Of course, we'll do the sequence properly to make sure no oxygen comes into the vent while we're ramming that charge in there, because anybody here ever seen a blacksmith at work? Maybe on a Western or something like that? What are they doing? They're pumping air into the fire, right? Making sure the fire is hot. Well, we don't want to actually create a bellows with fire in there and allow oxygen to come in, because what may happen? Boom! Into me, okay? So that's a very important job, okay? It'll also be puncturing the gunpowder bag at the appropriate time. All right, you can stand at ease. Okay, cannoneer number 4. Cannoneer number 4 has 2 instruments. He has a friction primer and a lanyard. So basically what the lanyard is, it's a stick on a stick and a string. And what happens is the friction primer, this is what's going to make the cannon go off. Just a little metal tube, a little wire inserted into it, with some gunpowder, potassium nitrate in there, and when the lanyard is jerked, we call it pulling, you're not going to just jerk it, you're going to give it a good tug. It's going to pull this little wire out, and it's going to pull that wire through this tube with that gunpowder, creating the friction, like for those of us that have ever used a match. Okay, we're going to strike that match on top of that obstruction, which is going to cause us to get the fire. Eventually, when the wire comes out, that jet of flame is going to shoot down the vent. It's going to ignite the gunpowder, which in turn is going to cause the explosion, sending the projectile downrange to the enemy, okay? Okay, cannoneer number 5. Come over here, Owen. The two tools he'll carry is he has this big haversack right here. It's called a gunner's bag. And what he's basically doing, this is the runner. So back where you are back there at the end of the shed, he's running back and forth with shells. Okay, this is actually one of our blank rounds, but you can see how similar it was to my other one I showed you. Okay, so he's running back and forth, getting the shell and the gunpowder to be loaded into the cannon back at the limber chest. All right, you have cannoneers number 6 and 7 are back at the limber chest. They are the ones that are getting the ammunition and they're setting the fuses. Okay, so the fuse is in front of the projectile. On this particular shell right here, or if we're firing smoothbore, that little piece of lead in there, that's the fuse. All right, so what they're doing, the way these work is it is timed in distance by time of flight. So they would have gunner's charts. Depending on the particular ammunition you're using, depending on the size of gun you're using, depending on the load of gunpowder you're using, basically it's going to tell you where to set your fuse. So I'm just going to throw a number out here. My target's 3,000 yards out there. It takes me 4.5 seconds to launch this shell 3,000 yards. In 3,000 yards, in order for my primer to work, they're going to set the timer on it, depending on the particular shell, and hopefully 3,000 yards down the road, that shell is going to burn down, causing the explosive shell to explode. As you can see, this one burned, but it turned out to be a dud. Can you all see where that's been burned inside there? So it was actually set to go off, but because whether it fell in the mud or was a short shot or whatever, it never actually burned itself through. And inside it would be lead projectiles. Okay? So that's going to be back there at 6 and 7. Your gunner is basically going to be either your corporal or your sergeant of the gun, depending on how many men you have available. And he's going to be the one that's going to be adjusting the gun. He'll be using these two soldiers here between shots to move his cannon left or right. There'll be a stick pulled out here. It's called a trail spike. Basically, you're moving the cannon with the trail spike. The gunner's going to sit right up in here. He's going to look through his sights. He's going to find out where his target is. He's going to take the screw right here, which is the elevation screw, which is the cannon either going to go up or down, depending on how far we went. He's going to give cues to these two guys. If I want my cannon to go left, I'm going to tap it left. They're going to move it left. If I tap it right, it's going to move it to the right. See how that kind of works? Every shot you have to reset your cannon. Because, to show you right there right now, they are not behind a wheel. In a real world situation, if we were firing 1.5 pounds of gunpowder with a 10-pound projectile in front of it, this cannon could actually come back as far as 3 to 4 feet, depending on how big the shot is. You do not want to get run over by your cannon. So as that cannon recoils, they're going to have to reset it so you can see how important it would be, okay? Any questions so far on light artillery? Okay, no. All right, just for demonstration purposes only. For demonstration purposes only, we will be doing a drill, which is a dry run. You will be able to see how each position will work. I will explain each position like I did previously, but you will see how it worked. Okay? So basically, the first command, your gunner's going to stand right here. That way he's watching his entire crew. He's looking where his target is. He's waiting for the command to come from up higher from the lieutenant who's passing it on from the captain. The first command will be cannoneers, post. At that point, each cannoneer will take their appropriate position. Number 5 will be back at the limber chest, getting ready for the shot. The next command will be load. Upon the command of load, number 3 will puncture the vent, cover with the thumb stall. Number 2 goes in with the corkscrew device to make sure it's clear. Number 1 goes in with the wet sponge, swabs out the barrel. We tap the muzzle, that means the gun's ready. At that point, cannoneer number 4 will advance the round. He will bring it to the gunner to make sure it's the appropriate charge that's being called for. The intern will run back up there, giving it to number 2, who will in turn load the projectile as he heads back for the next shot. Once two inserts the charge, number one's going to ram that charge to the back of the gun. Upon the appropriate cannon, the next command will be ready. Upon ready, the gunpowder bag will be punctured by the vent pick. Number four will insert the primer, stretch out his lanyard. He will brush off number three, who's helping him out. And upon the appropriate command to fire, go ahead and fire. Lanyard's going to be pulled. The reason why the lanyard needs to be pulled behind the back, you're going to see other people do it, especially inexperienced cannoneers. For example, may I see this real quick? So if I pull my shot, like he did, and I pull it in front of me, remember I got a piece of wire here, so what do you think is going to happen to that wire? It's going to catch you right in the face. But if you pull it behind your back and turn away from it, it's going to go back here behind you. And then you get ready for your next shot. You see how that would work instead of pulling? Okay. We will be firing one shot. It will be a blank round. The round has about 8
Could you
pounds of
imagine
gunpowder,
being
so
one
it's
driving
half
over there when they
charge.
shoot it?
At the appropriate time, I will tell you to cover your ears if you are sensitive to hearing or have hearing aids on, okay? We don't want to send home anybody deaf. Everybody hear that? Okay. Cannoneers, post, load, clear. Ready. Hearing protection, hearing aids down. Fire! Fire!
Wow.
Go ahead. Okay. I'm going to count down to 3. For those of you who want to get your camera shot. 3, 2, 1, fire! Fail primer, do not advance. Okay, this is a very common problem with primers. So what we do is we have a 3-minute safety point. If we were in a war, it didn't make any difference. We're going to knock that sucker out of there to go for the next charge. But in the interest of safety, we do not want that thing to go off because what do we have? A loaded cannon right now, right? Yeah. You do not want to be above that vent when that thing goes off. All right, so we're going to give it the time. He's going to go ahead, he's going to repuncture, reprime it to make sure it's clear. And at that point, we'll remove the old primer, okay? So please bear with us. Okay, just for purposes, you see how he has his ramrod up there high? That means that's a hot gun, but it hasn't been fired yet. Okay, so that would be a cue. Do not get anywhere near my gun because I have a hot shot in there, okay? So, fire! Still hot?
It's still hot and
Next step to the right.
Right step. Go ahead, right step.
Step to the right.
Yep.
Oh.
Boom.
Okay. All right. So now what we're going to do right now is we're going to go through small weapons. Okay, every weapon I got here, it looks like I have a flintlock musket. We have an Enfield rifle, right? And you got a
42. Springfield.
Model
24.
42 Smithsboro?
Yep.
Okay.
oh sweet.
So what we have is a transit, several different weapons that were used here at Fort Hudson. So to start off with, okay, we have David right here. The weapon he'll be shown will be the flintlock musket. This is going to be flint and steel, very ancient technology. Okay, so if I get my other two riflemen to step aside, please, we'll let David do his demo real quick. All right, so the loading process in this, the only time you would load by numbers, you would load at the very beginning. As it continued on, you have. Yes, sir. Okay, so normally you're going to have your whole line of infantry lined up. Of the 26,000 Confederates here at Fort Hudson, about half of that 26,000 was armed with this weapon. Smooth bore, it had a range of about 80 yards. Not very good for long distance, but the ammunition they used, which was buck and ball, or ball rounds, is very deadly up close. It's like running face into a shotgun. Okay, and he's ready. He'll bring the weapon up. He'll bring it up to his shoulder. Aim. Hammer's cocked all the way back. Got it cocked all the way back, Dave? Yes, sir. And upon the appropriate command to fire, if everything works right, you'll see 2 explosions. Fire! That's how that weapon will work. Load! This next time he will not do it. Now the rate of fire with a musket is 3 rounds in 1 minute. So we're doing this every 20 seconds. Okay? Now it seems kind of slow, but you got to remember at the time of the Civil War, up to that time frame, we were fighting battles with large infantry formations. So you may have 500 muskets at 3 rounds a minute. We're thumping about 1,500 rounds down range per minute. The enemy on the other side is actually going to be at the point where they're doing the same thing. As you got the ready, aim, fire. That's how that weapon will work. Okay? So the rest of my company is all primed up. Visualize every one of these upright poles is a soldier in a battle line. Across my field, I have all those enemy soldiers on the other side, and they're lined up elbow to elbow and shoulder to shoulder. Anybody a golfer in this group? These soldiers did not sit around all day and play cards and let us home. They drilled. That way it was muscle memory. Now this is, go ahead and fire upon when you're ready. He's got that opposing enemy. So he will continue that until he dies. In front of him that may have laid behind that tree there, he's going to go ahead and let that guy expose himself. Take out that Yankee behind that tree. Ah! That's okay. We recharged our cannon. We reprimed it, and if it doesn't work, we're done with the small. We'll go back to small arms, and then we'll finish up with the 42. How's that? Okay. Ready. Air protection. Fire! Cannoneer! All right.
So you can see the advantages of a.
This is a 42-pound Siege Coast artillery. This gun was developed in 1822 when they made it. What year is it now?
2023.
How old is this cannon? 201 years old, and we still fire it. Let me tell you the story behind the cannon. This is a Navy gun. It was originally aboard the USS Delaware in the 1850s. Let me step back one step. Some of our veterans, anybody here a Navy vet? Served in the U.S. Navy besides Casey? All right, well, what ships do, occasionally they have to come into port to go through a refit. Okay? So they get upgraded with armor, get upgraded with weapons. So the USS Delaware in 1850 is sent back to the Navy Yard in Virginia, and they're going to upgrade the guns. They're going to modernize the ship. So they take this particular cannon off the Delaware and stick it in storage at the Navy Yard in Virginia. Well, when Virginia succeeds and the war breaks out, the Confederates take possession of the Navy Yard, and they had all these old cannons just laying there. Of course, the Confederates didn't have a whole lot of weapons to deal with, so they took these guns and they shipped them to where they needed to. This particular gun was actually shipped to a fort south of here. Anybody here familiar with Grand Isle, Louisiana? Barataria Bay. Directly across the bay, the mouth of Barataria Bay, is a fort called Fort Livingston. Fort Livingston is where this gun lived during the time of the Civil War. After the Civil War, it was never fired in anger. The fort was abandoned. The gun was salvaged. It wound up in Fort Pike. Does anybody know where Fort Pike, Louisiana may be? New Orleans East. If you've been down that way, you're in St. County Parish, taking the old Highway 90, you're going to drive past Fort McComb and Fort Pike. That gun eventually gets transferred to Fort Pike. Well, Fort Pike did not have any 42-pounders, and here at Port Hudson we had 3 42-pounders, so the 42-pounder now lives here as an example of what was used here at the time of the war. And on the very back where Mike's standing, you kind of see where that knob is? And there's something missing on that little piece of metal there. You kind of see that gap there? What that gives you, that lets you know it's a Navy gun, because what the Navy would do is they would run ropes on the back of their guns on pulleys. And that way when the cannon fired and the rope came back, they would be able to hold that cannon from going clear across the ship. Historically, this gun fired a charge of 10 pounds gunpowder. Projectile weighed 42 pounds and had a range of about 1,900 yards. Very deadly up close on wooden warships. Okay? All right, so we're going to have Owen fire the cannon today. Yesterday was his birthday, so he gets to have a birthday bang. All right? He'll celebrate his birthday and make everybody happy. All right. Now remember, he's a rookie, so if he messes up, don't be too hard on him. All right. Are our cannoneers ready?
Ready.
Mr. Bruce, you ready? I'm going to count down to 3. And upon the count of 3, we will have a lanyard pull. Be sure to cover your ears. 3, 2, 1.